and share. Welcome everyone to transition time number 6. This class is about balancing our giving and receiving. It is such a critical class. And it's amazing how many people just forget about, realizing that when they're over giving, it isn't a good thing. Or thinking that, they don't need to receive. It's okay, but no, we have to be balanced in this. So we're going to do some conversation about this today. So without further ado, let me share the screen. So our outcomes today, this is what we want to have happen with today's class. This is all about examining why we give and why we receive. And we want to look at, is it healthy or not healthy? That's the whole thing for today. And we want to get you to start to shift into a very healthy place inside. I wanted to point out that there were handouts for today. There are 5 handouts. You don't need them. If you want to ever get the handouts though, if you go into our Facebook page, the Inner Wisdom Circle with Kelly Schwegel, you're going to see a Files tab. If you click that Files tab, it will pull up these, okay? Where all of the files are for you to print off. The other place that you can do, I don't know if you guys know that this exists, but right underneath the header in our Inner Wisdom Circle page, there's this thing that says popular topics and post. If you click on those, it's actually really cool. You can click on transition time worksheets, transition time recordings, wisdom class recordings, and meditations. So depending on what you click on, it'll pull up every piece of news feed that I tagged in those posts. So I actually tagged them. So when you click on them, it will come up. So let me pull up chat. I've got some information. Oh yeah, okay, so there's more talking about what's going on in the US. Yeah, Kathleen was saying there was a march and a protest in Redding, California last evening. Wow, I'm gonna have to find some US news. It's hard to find it here. Okay, and that could also be why, that there's a lot of people aren't here who normally are. So I wanna remind you about these 3 treasures of wisdom we're always working toward. When you can get into a place of humility, compassion, and moderation, and that's how you live your life, especially towards self, okay, what's going to happen is you're going to transition. Today, we're going to focus on compassion and moderation. I've been talking about after you do a lot of your releasing of your younger yous who were in pain, you look at your human conditioning and you understand how you got conditioned and how it plays itself out in your world. And you're going through all of that beautiful letting go and forgiveness. It's time to balance. So you can do balancing at any time, but you want to make sure you do this along with your other healing. So the very first class that I gave on balancing was about getting out of mental chatter. The second class, which was last week, was balancing masculine and feminine approaches to life, which is really where is it that you are living your life? Are you living your life from the outside with force and making things happen? Or do you live your life from the inside in a beautiful place of internal strength? Today, we've got to talk about the giving and receiving because it's a critical part of your being. So I want to ask you guys this question, and I'm going to stop the share in a minute. So I want you to think about this. What the heck are we doing here? What are we really doing here on Earth? Okay. What are you doing in these bodies? What are we going through? Why are we going through everything that's happening to us? And I want you to think not about what you believe. I want you to think about the most typical answer people will say. What will people say, no matter what? Pretty much everybody. What will they say if they haven't had all my teachings? Okay, if they haven't been through transition time, what would they say to this answer? Put it in the chat. And I'm stopping the share. So for those of you, I just saw some people just joined in. I want you to write in the chat bar, just an answer. What would the typical person say if you said, what's the purpose of life? Like, what are we doing here in these bodies on this earth? And Rachel says, reproduction. Okay, and there are a lot of people that say that, especially the young souls and the infant souls. So Charles says, many would say to marry, have kids, and have fun. Okay, you're right. Stephanie says to help others. Yup. Kalima says to pay bills and survive. Oh, okay. Ron says to live God's purpose on earth. Beautiful. Diane says, I'll try to stay, but here in LA and in many, oh, yeah, she's talking about the protests. Kathy says to live our best lives. Michelle says to have different experiences. The other Michelle says to expand and grow. Yeah, do you see, we know what people would think this earth is about, this world is about, what we're doing here, to create heaven on earth. Kalima says to take care of themselves and their families and their communities. Sushila says to do our mission. Okay, this is so exactly it. Okay, so let me share the screen again. Charles says, none would say life is meaningless. No. So the number one answer that I get from people is this: it's to be in service and give back. That's what people say all the time. Well, I'm here to give back. I'm here to love others and to be in service. And it's really interesting because you know what my guides say to that? They're like, no, you didn't. And I remember when I first, heard my guide say that, I was like, what? And Ron says, this is from others, not me, and I have my own thought. He says, to live my multidimensional expansion in human form. Yeah, blah, blah. It's true, but. Oh, Charles says, some would say that life is meaningless. Yeah, you're right. And seriously, here's it. My guides, as I said, they kind of said, no, it isn't to be in service and give back. They said, you're here to grow and expand. And so when you're growing and expanding, that means that you have to start to see the ego showing up. That's the whole deal. When you can see that you are a human that is actually a soul having an experience, when you can really see that the ego is something that isn't who you authentically are, that trying to find love and affection and everything outside of you is not it. That's not it. Nobody can really love you. I'm sorry, guys. The only one who can love you is you. Love isn't an action. It's a state of being. So they said, your whole purpose here isn't to be in service and give back. We like it. We think you should do it, but for the right reason. And that's what we're going to talk about. So check this out. And I just want to point out that Diane said, your answer sounds best. Better answer, I agree. She said, and Shalini said, expand divine creation. Exactly. Yeah, we know people. Okay. So when you have an active ego and you're giving, you're going to create imbalance. Okay? Because remember what the ego actually does. It tries to fill a need. All right? It will cause you to look for worth and value through what you do. It's going to have you vying for love. Like, do you love me now? If I work harder, will you love me now? What about now? Will you love me now? Remember doing the tap dance, in the Dog and Chapponi show? You love me now? You love me now? You love me now? Okay? That's what the ego does. And if you put that into giving, you're going to realize that you're just trying to feel better about yourself. You're trying to please. And all you're doing is trying to give your life meaning. Okay, so you're missing out. You're still, even in your act of giving, indulging the ego. I know this is mind-blowing. Okay, people are like, but it's a nice thing to do. Of course it's the nice thing to do. It's still indulging the ego if the ego is present in driving it. Okay, we're going to talk some more, so hold tight. So I'm going to have you do a little self-reflection on unhealthy giving. All right. I want you to check any of these things that you have going on, and I'll read them aloud for those on the phone. So just kind of think about it. Are you ever trying to make everybody around you happy? What about always putting yourself second? Putting others people's needs before yours? What about doing something for someone else, even though you know it will not be good or healthy for you? You know you're exhausted, but you go and do it anyway. I had one beautiful client making masks, and she was making masks so much she wasn't even sleeping or eating well. Okay. What about, how often do you take responsibility for someone else's problems? What about trying to fix their problems or fix their lives? What about always wanting to please everyone? What about not being able to say no very well? What about not setting boundaries? What about giving because it then makes you feel like you're worth something? Or maybe you can be the opposite. Maybe you can be self-centered and not give to others. Okay. So think about that. I want you to think about that. So I'm going to stop the share again. How many of these did you guys have? How many? How many? And so Michelle said, all except the last one. Thank you for your honesty. I think I used to have all of them. All right. Kalima says ditto. All right. How many of those did you have? No, you want to really feel into it. So I'll keep the share. I'll put the share up again. Ron says 3 of them, so clear while Michael was dying. Yeah. Okay. And Micheline said 2 of them. And so Sheila said almost all. So you can see that we're at various places in regard to our giving. So let me share the screen again, and we're going to do a little more analyzing. All right. So here they are again. Look at the ways in which we unhealthily give. Okay. When we're trying to fix other people, when we're just putting ourselves second, when we're trying to do something because it makes us feel better, because then we feel like we're worth something. When the ego is present, the giving will be filling a need to be loved and appreciated, a need to be wanted, a need to be worthy, a need to be of value. Okay, this is, you know, when there is need behind anything, it is going to be in imbalance. So let me see a comment that I had here. Kathleen said she had 4 of them. And Stephanie said, my younger me's can strongly relate. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's really feel into this. How much of what you're doing is coming from need to be valuable, to have people want you? Charles says, I give because I think I should. Not out of guilt, but a sense of responsibility. Yeah. And even that would be coming from the ego. Okay. And so, and Kathy says, number 4 rang true presently, taking responsibility for someone else's problems. Yeah, that's huge. Okay. And so, or maybe 4 of them. So now I'm going to introduce you, before we go on, I'm going to introduce you to 4 characters. Okay. And I'm going to describe them. So I want you to feel into you, and I want you to identify, who do you tend to be? Maybe you're schizophrenic and you have a lot of these 4. Maybe you're all 4, but I want you to identify which of these characters you relate to. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first one. Are you Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It? Which means when something goes wrong, you work very hard to fix their problems. You're like, I can't have them suffer. I don't want, you're right there, Johnny on the spot, making sure they are taken care of. Okay. Even if it means that you're not getting self-care, you put their self-care in front of yours. All right. I want you to think about that, Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It. What about this one? Mr. or Mrs. Caretaker. Mr. and Mrs. Caretaker are those individuals who usually were caretakers as a child, had to take care of things, and they either got praised from it or learned that caretaking for other people was love. Like, for an example, I have somebody I worked with who all they did was take care. They had a mother who had a mental illness, you know, they had a father who was absent. So they were just like caretaking for their brothers and sisters, caretaking mom, caretaking brothers and sisters, caretaking mom. And that's what they did. They learned to be a caretaker. That's their worth and their value. Okay, even though that's not it, there's so much more. But they learned that. Okay, so they learned to do that, or they learned that if they caretook other people or cared for other people's needs, that they would be valued, they would be loved. Feel into that. Here's our next character, Mr. and Mrs. Controlling Enabler, which means you go a little beyond just Mr. and Mrs. Fix It. That means you're like, I've got the answer. Let me take care of that for you. I've got this. Let me just, nope, I know best. Let me take care of it. Okay. No, don't do that. This is, let me tell you how it has to be. Okay. I want you to do it like this. Maybe you know some of these. Okay. I think I'm sounding like my father. Okay. I want you to think of these enablings. Okay. In there, fixing the problem, but you're also very controlling. Just give me your budget and I'll figure it out for you. We're going to get that going. Okay. Let me do this for you. All right. So that means you're actually not just sitting there counseling, fixing, you know, wanting everybody to be happy. You're actually doing it. Maybe you are this woman, Mr. or Mrs. can't say no. Okay. So overworked because you can't say no. How many of you relate to this? No matter what's going on, it's like, oh, I don't want to disappoint anyone, or they really need me. And oh shit, I really don't have time, but okay. How many of you are like that? So put in the chat bar, who are you? Who do you relate to? Any of these? So let's get in there. Let's take a look and see what you guys say. Michelle, I know the answer. Control enabler. Yeah, I used to be the miss. I couldn't say no. Now I say no, but before I couldn't at all. Although when it comes to some of my clients, I still have a hard time saying no. So I make people book online now. Yes, Karen gets it. She's like, can't say no. Okay, what about the rest of you? Did you see yourself in any of those? All right. Stephanie, miss can't say no. LOL. All right. Think about that. These characters are real. They're people who are there and they just, they want to make everything safe and they want to make everything happy. Okay. Dave, you're the caretaker. I could totally see that in you, Dave. And hi, honey. Yeah. Think about that. Kathleen, caretaker. I can totally see that in you too. You got to watch those cancers too. Cancers are big caretakers. Okay. Kalima says, it's a tie between caretaker and controlling enabler. Yep. Okay. That's that power, taking control, you know, getting it done. Stan says, a mix between 1 and 2. I'm here to be of service though. So how does one resolve the 2? We're going to talk about that. Hold tight. Charles says, I'm at a place where I don't care about other people. I think that's a problem. And actually that there is one of those, you know, where it's like, you're kind of stuck in your own bubble and you know, you're just not, see, it's one of the things that it comes from conditioning. Okay. So when you're stuck in your bubble, that is one of the ones. That means that you're not giving in balance. Okay. You're not seeing the people around you. So Karen says, I'm a Miss Fix-It. And Judy says, I'm a caretaker and fixer. I can see that, Judy. Total caretaker and fixer. Okay. So feel into this again. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So I want you to fill in the blank. Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. Why do you do what you do? Why? When you are doing this, I want you to write your answers. Why do you do what you do? What motivates you to become the caretaker, Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It, or, you know, here, let me remind you of the characters. Mr. or Mrs. Can't Say No, Mr. or Mrs. Controlling Enabler, Mr. or Mrs. Caretaker, or Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It. What makes you do this? Okay, so let's get in there and let's see your shares now. because it's the right thing to do. No, it's not. Kalima, because I want to be in control. You are so beautiful. I love your honesty. And Karen says, seeking approval. Exactly. Okay. And Karen, I totally relate with you, because about the feeling like it's the right thing to do. A lot of people do, especially when somebody expects it of you, or society expects it, or your spouse expects it. Okay. Dave says, to assure that I deserve and obtain affection and approval. Beautifully honest. Exactly. Stephanie says, Miss, I can't say no because I want to help others and don't want to disappoint others. Yes. Yes. We're going to talk about that disappointing others in a big way. Okay. So here we go. I want you to do a self-reflection about why do you overgive. And again, I'll read these out loud, not because you can't read the screen, but because we have some people on phone. All right. So, in the handout, this was actually put in, and it says, they would do this. I put it into, second person, you would do this. So it's written in third person in the handout, but I put it into you. So it may not match if you're reading it from your paper. But here it is. Why would you overgive? Why would you do that? Because you wish somebody would give to you in the way that you give to others. How many relates with that one? In childhood, you had to take care of struggling, immature, or dysfunctional parents, or your younger siblings, and you learned to be the caretaker for everyone else but yourself. Or how about this? You hate when others suffer, not realizing that it's the suffering. The suffering is what helps us to learn and grow. So you try to take it away from other people's experiences because suffering makes you feel bad. What about this? Because you feel good about yourself when you do good for others, not realizing that it keeps you finding your self-worth and value outside of yourself. Oh, how about this? You feel like life is not safe or kind. So you're trying to create safety and kindness around you by making others' lives safe and kind. All right, here's a little bit more. You have such low self-esteem that you feel that everyone else around you deserves more than you do. Or you feel that if you do for others, people will like you and accept you more. Or you like to feel in charge, so you take control of what happens in other people's lives. Or maybe you're afraid to disappoint others by saying no, and subconsciously fear that disappointment would cause someone else to not like or accept you. Okay, what are your reactions? How did you feel about those? And we're going to talk about this. Let me go back to some of these answers. So Kathleen says, yes, for me growing up, taking care of others, I was praised and had my mother show the same example with people in her life. So you had role modeling of doing this. And Marissa says, well, because I'm told I'm selfish, so I overcompensate by giving too much. I will give and give and give and still get told I'm selfish. So I try to prove how not selfish I am. Oh, yeah, you're not selfish. You're not selfish. Okay. And Michelle said number 3. And Kalima says, 3 of those statements resonated. I don't want others to suffer. And number 2, I want others to feel safe. And number 3, I want to be liked and accepted. Right. And so Sheila says, I hate to see others suffer. And Stephanie says 1 through 4 and the very last one. Okay. So feel into these, guys. Here's the deal. When you're afraid to say no, I want you to think of a situation where somebody comes up to you and they ask for your help and you say no and they are disappointed. How does that make you feel? How does it make you feel when you are disappointing? Michelle said devastating. Okay, devastated. Okay, and Michelle says that she was taught that the older siblings had to take care of the younger ones, and Judy said ditto. So feel into this again, especially those Mr. and Mrs. Fix-Its. Okay, when somebody is disappointed in you, because you said no, isn't that a form of feeling rejected? They don't like you anymore. Feel into it. Karen says, it's intolerable. Okay. And the thing is, Stan says, that affects my sense of self-worth. Yeah, like how dare I? Exactly. Stephanie says, sad. Okay, so I want you to feel into this. Let's just say that here you are, you're sitting with human conditioning that caused you to have a lack of self-worth, okay? And you want to be accepted, and you're tired of being a bad person or worthless or shameful or any of those things. And then somebody asks you to do something and you say, I can't. And they're like, oh, I really needed your help. Oh God, you might as well just, torture someone, because it is a form of rejection when people are disappointed. Okay. So I'm going to read this. Kathleen says, oh, sorry, there's actually one before this. Kalina says, I teach high school, so I experience that a lot. Maybe I've built up a tolerance. That could very well be. Kathleen says, yes, and I feel the same when someone rejects what I offer. Exactly. It is just a form of rejection. Rachel says, usually when my Mr. Fix-It kicks in, it's in helping people navigate personal development things. I realize it's not my job to carry them through their personal development, especially if they're not asking for it. And I have to let it go and let them learn their lessons, but I'm not sure what my underlying motivator is other than wanting the best for them and encouraging them to live their best life. Perhaps I have a blind spot there. And she said, underlying need for control or satisfaction, validation from others. Feel into that. We'll see how you feel at the end of this. Dave says, I feel guilty that I let others down. Exactly. That's what happens. It's interesting where how many people will need to feel needed. They need to feel needed. And if they don't get if they're not able to help you, or they're not able to have you need them, or have that feeling of worth from someone else, it is amazing how upset they get, how sad they get. I've experienced this in my life with people who, are just, oh my gosh. And I used to be super needy, and it was like, until I got myself in balance, I was just like, I couldn't say no. I was Miss Fix-It and a bit of the controller. Okay. I would be the caretaker. I would bend over backwards to help people because I just wanted to be a good person because I thought I was a bad one. All right. So Stan says, having difficulty reconciling my belief that we are a collective, that we assist and influence each other, and not being available. All right, hold on to that thought, okay? We're going to get into what it actually looks like to have healthy and why you wouldn't or shouldn't be Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It, okay? So I want to go back to, there's something on this page, so let me just do this. I want to go back to the very first one. You wish that someone would give to you the way that you give to others. What you're doing, I want you to imagine that there's a younger you inside of you that is just screaming, will somebody help me? Will somebody help me? Will somebody be there for me? Will somebody just be nice to me? Okay, and so you are constantly doing what that younger you needs for other people, because that younger you just wished that somebody would have done it for him or her. Feel into that. Okay. And if you learned to do something like take care of other people, it's in your programming. It's not healthy. It's not your worth or your value, but that's what you learned. And right now, we are going to talk about number 3. You hate when other people suffer, okay? And you think, well, I can help. And Karen says, I still feel like that. So listen, I want to talk about suffering. Every single person on this planet came here to get into suffering, came here to do that. And I had a man one time when I was one of the very first presentations I gave in California. He was in the back and he raises his hand and he's like, So you're trying to tell me that a just and loving God wants children to suffer? And I just looked at him and I said, yes, I am. The suffering that we go through is what gives us our growth, because if everything is going well, why change? And if everything is going well as a soul, what are you doing here? You need expansion and growth. You won't expand and grow if you don't go through these experiences. So I want you to think about this and who's that? Give me a second. Let me open this up. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the chat. Because who in here is this person? I want you to speak up. Kalima. She's a teacher. Okay. I used to be a teacher. Teachers, what do we know is the worst thing to do? Kathy, teacher. What do we know is the worst thing to do when you give a kid homework? Having someone else do it. You know, the kid shows up and the parents did the homework. Well, that kid learned nothing. Nothing. If you do somebody else's homework, they're not going to learn. So I want you to think about when we want to go in and save the day. We want to go in and fix the problem. We want to go in and caretake and do things. They came here to go through their experiences. They came here to learn and grow. You have no right to take away their learning. No right. Feel into it that way. This is a perspective shift. I'm not really yelling at anybody. I want you to feel into that. Okay? You don't have a right to take away their opportunity for growth. I think you guys remember when I put out, not all of you, but some of you might, but on my my YouTube channel, I put on about the Mayan caves, and that in a 6-month period, this will be hard to hear, so if you're sensitive, earmuff for a minute, okay? In a 6-month period, I was roofied in Flagstaff, Arizona, ended up, passed out underneath a car, having to be taken by ambulance. It was terrible. It was total vulnerability for 4 hours. I was stuck and couldn't move. And then I was sexually assaulted by a holistic doctor. And 6 months after that, I was beat up in Belmopan, Belize, and left in a Mayan cave in nothing but a swimsuit in a country I didn't know, where I didn't know anyone, and it was evening. Okay, so should I be upset that all that suffering happened to me? No. Do you not know that that brought me some of my greatest growth I have ever had, except for what's happened recently? That right there taught me the most crucial lesson for my soul. There is nothing that anyone on this planet can do to me, nothing that anyone can do to this physical body that can take away my innocence, can take away my joy. I'm not going to give anyone that power. I'm not going to give anyone that control. I own my happiness no matter what happens. Okay? Those lessons brought me that growth. I wouldn't have it without that. Why would I want to take those away? And recently, where I had a bigger experience than those, okay, there was a moment in time where I realized that if I hadn't been sexually assaulted by that doctor, I would not have known how to respond in this recent situation that was bigger. That's what I'm writing that story about. Okay, so in that moment, I remember thinking, oh my God, when I was assaulted, my body went into freeze mode. I couldn't move. Okay, and I couldn't stop the doctor. I couldn't do anything. I left my body. I learned to stay in my body. I learned to not freeze. I learned to get into a place of saying, because I had been through it. So we think that suffering is horrible, and guys, it is not. When people come to me and they're working with me and they say, I've got this taken care of, I do everything right, I'm a good girl, I'm a good boy, my guides are over there going, what a waste. They didn't come here to do that. There's no growth. Okay, they're like, no, you need to get into the muck of life. It is weak to go sit on top of a mountain and chant Om. It's hard and courageous to be the calm amongst the storm. But you got to go through the storm to get the calm. Okay, you've got to go through the experiences. So when the hardest thing is when there are our children, okay, and our children are suffering. I've had to let my daughter walk through some pretty hard lessons. I tried to, help her, give her advice, but she chose not to take it. And I said to her, this is going to come back and bite you. I didn't go and fix her problem, and it bit her. And she told me many, many times that experience was so good for her. Okay, that was my child. We don't fix our children. We guide them. And we don't approach anyone with giving them advice unless they ask for it. Okay, I've shared this with you before because my boyfriend is very open about it. He found his father hanging when he was 14 years old. Okay, and there's a huge experience where everybody shut down. Nobody talked about it. Mom didn't talk about it. Brother didn't talk about it. So Daniel became the caretaker for mother and brother. All he learned was to give. So he had needs. So if I didn't need him, he didn't think I loved him. That wasn't the case. Okay? He can't fix, you can't need. And we worked with what happened to him to realize it was one of the life lessons he chose to come here to go through. And he made it through. And it made him a very strong person. Okay? So one of the things I want to say to the person who privately messaged, they had a situation similar to what I just shared. And to let you know, Daniel yelled at his father the night before he killed himself. Okay? And thought it was his fault all these years. It wasn't. Okay? We found out exactly what happened. All right? And it wasn't that at all. So I want to read some of this. Karen says, my boyfriend gave me a gorgeous orchid for my birthday. I felt like I couldn't receive it. It was all I can do not to pay him for it. Oh, yes, I get it. Okay. So yes, it is hard to hear, but strength emerges through very hard times. And let's get now into that receiving and talking a little bit more about this giving. Dave says, I agree with letting others grow through their experiences. We just need to be very careful in saying to them that they will find growth in their suffering. No, you don't say that. You don't just say that. Okay? You help them to see the growth, but you don't say, oh, this is all for your good, or hey, you drew this in. Now, if they talk to me in the session, I will probably talk to them about that. But when I see people suffering, I see it all the time. I do not go up to them and offer to fix them. I do not go up to them and offer sessions. I do not do that, because if they're going to find me, it's because they are ready for it. So we don't go and intrude in on anyone and try to fix them because maybe they're not ready. Okay? They will find who they need. Trust me on this. When they are ready to grow, they will find the help they need. You found this class for a reason. No accident. Okay? So let me get in. Let's get into a little bit more, because again, I'm going to run out of time because I'm a chatterbox. Okay, so fill in the blank, Mr. or Mrs. Did you take away anybody else's right to learn? Are you doing someone else's homework? Or maybe you're thinking you can do it better. Maybe you don't want to see them suffer. Maybe you want it done your way. Any of those things is just the ego at play. And it's not respecting this life that we came to engage in. And there is nothing wrong with giving assistance if they ask for it and approach you, or saying, hey, let me know if you need help. And if they say yes, say, let me teach you how to move through this. I'm not here to fix you. I am here to help you fix you.
And I let you come to me. I put it out there. You chose to come. The information can be there. The assistance can be there, but not through the ego. Okay? And the ego doesn't see the perfection in suffering. So, how does overgiving harm you? It gives away your power, first of all, because you're giving the suffering all the power. You're giving, your power away because you're saying somebody else's needs are more important than your health and well-being. And it just keeps you stuck in the ego. It'll wear you out. It will overwhelm you. It will prevent you from doing what you love to do. Okay? And it will keep you from self-care. So I want you to think about this. Life conditions people to overgive. Okay? Because they got value from it. They got love. They felt safe. They had to take care. Okay? Maybe you were neglected and just wanted attention. Maybe nobody was there for you. Maybe you developed a lack of self-worth. This is what you need to heal, not other people. Again, they will find you. Right? Here's a self-reflection. Feel into these. This is what healthy giving looks like. You give when someone is not strong enough physically to accomplish a task. Well, then help by all means, please. Help the old lady walk across the street. Help somebody move their refrigerator, as long as it's not harming you. Give in the way of opening a door for, picking something up, handing something to someone because you feel internal compassion. Okay? But not if it harms you. Give a smile, a hug, or a look of acceptance because you really want to. Okay? Only give advice if a person asks for it, but always try to get the person asking to find their own conclusions, not to do what you say. Right? When somebody is struggling, work alongside them to find their solutions. Give emotional support that is encouraging and empowers the person to take their control of the situation. Okay. And I will say, guys, I'm going to give you a few more examples here. I will say there are situations where there are extremes. Okay. I can tell you that if there were somebody who were trapped in a burning car, I would probably go to help them. Okay. Does that mean it could cause me harm? Probably, but those are extreme situations. I'm talking about in daily life. Okay. Now, here's healthy giving. Give motivation to others that encourages them to know they can make it through a difficult situation. Volunteer because it's part of your desire to see good things happen, not because it gives you worth or value. Engage in random acts of kindness where your kindness is not known or recognized by other people. They don't have to know that you did something random. Okay? Give positive words to other people. Give your joy and radiance just by being a happy, positive person. Okay, be a role model. Give truth, honesty, and integrity that comes from self-love, not the needs of the ego. And sorry about those little question marks. Apparently, I forgot to take those out. I do have a comment here. Yes. So Judy says, this is so rocky. He took care of everyone in his family. Alcoholic mom, dad left when, oh, I'm sorry. I hope this was okay to say out loud. I just realized that was private. She said she can see that somebody was a caretaker who had an alcoholic mother, a dad that left at 2 older siblings, being crazy. He was always helping everyone, even beyond our needs as a couple. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And to the other private person who mentioned, yes, absolutely, contact me. Okay, so let's look at this again. How do you keep from the imbalance? This is what you need to do, guys. You have to ask the right questions. What is your intention? What is motivating you to give like that? Is this filling a need? What is behind the giving? Okay? And then you heal the younger yous who need the help. That's what has to happen. So you've got to be willing to watch where your giving is coming from. And you've got to be willing to see that saying no is because you feel rejected, or that you don't want to see people suffer, which means that you're not seeing the perfection of this life. So before we run out of time, let's talk receiving. This goes hand in hand with giving, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, everybody get ready to put your answer. What is your comfortability with receiving? 1, I don't receive well at all. 10, I totally receive well. What is your, where are you on the scale? Okay, we've got, wow, that's incredible. Such ranges. Oh my gosh, look at the answers. I'll let you guys look at the chat and see this. Absolutely incredible. 1, 8.5, 3, 4.5, 7, but getting better. 5, 6 to 7, 3, 8, 3, 6, 6, 5. Holy smokes, we're all over. Okay, and yeah, wow. So, and Judy, I see your comment. Now I see how I do it too, and we feed each other. Exactly, exactly. Codependence can happen this way. Okay, so with receiving, I find that people either tend to have no ability to receive whatsoever, okay, or are complete takers, where they receive all the time without giving back. Okay, either of these are not to be judged, because people are just the way they are because of their human conditioning. The goal is to find out what conditioning is at play. The goal is to find the balance. So when you do the wonders of why, it's going to bring it back. Why can't I give? So Charles brought up, I can't give. I don't give. Then do the wonders of why. Why? What was my childhood like where I didn't? Okay. Was it not valued? Did something happen? You want to look at it. Okay. So, and we're going to do another self-reflection, but I just want to check out the chat. We've got 3 comments here. So it's more numbers, 6, 5, and 7. Ooh, yeah, lots in the middle here. Okay, so feel into this. I find that there are 3 different categories when you are an unhealthy receiver. One would be you're too proud. I don't want anyone to know that I can't do something, so I don't accept their help or their advice. Sound like anyone here? I already think people don't value or respect me, so I'm not going to let them know I need anything. Oh, that was so me. So me. I don't want charity because it's embarrassing. I don't want anyone to know that I'm lacking something. That was me too. I'm stubborn and I can figure it out on my own. That is still me. I need my independence. Okay. These are just all, it's all good. No, too proud to accept. Here's another category. Too good. I know more than you, and you will not take, and I'm not going to take your advice or your teaching. Okay. Our family is in high status and we are better than receiving from anyone else. I am better than you, so I do not feel comfortable receiving from you. I take more than I give because I believe that I am owed that. Taking from you strips me of my power and I'm not doing it. Okay, feel into that. Anybody here too good? What about this one? This is gonna be the majority. Not good enough, because that's human beings. When you are a loving person inside, you tend to think you're not good enough. It's part of the human conditioning. You blame yourself. Okay, I'm not worthy of help. Other people are better than I am, and I should be doing for them, not them doing for me. I need assistance because I can't make it on my own. I do not feel powerful enough to accomplish, so I need your help. Okay, are you just not good enough? Are you feeling that you're not good enough to receive? And I want you to think about this. I want you to think about subconscious guilt and shame. What is lurking below the surface, subconsciously driving whether you get to receive good stuff? What could subconsciously be under there? Feel into this. I did bad and I deserve nothing. I'm just a bad person. Maybe there's abuse, neglect, criticism.
Maybe you felt like you were a second-rate person. Our family wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. Okay. Those kind of things are going to cause subconscious guilt and shame. Shame that you're not good enough, guilt that, you did bad. Like my boyfriend, in yelling at his father, and then his father killed himself. And that had nothing to do with Daniel, but he didn't know that. Nobody talked to him. Okay. He felt like he was a bad person and he didn't deserve good things. He didn't deserve anything. Okay. Not true. One of the most beautiful people I can come across. So, got some comments here. Here we go. Kalima says, the last ones resonate. And Stephanie says, your memoji. I know, those are all my bitmojis. Let's see. Kathleen says, I beat myself up when I make a mistake. I'm getting better at acceptance of the lessons for my growth, and I'm trying not to judge myself. It is hard, but we have to realize, I do the same thing, in such subtle ways, because my ego has become very clever because I worked on it so much. It's become very clever and trying to get things in there. Like, oh, you got COVID? Well, if you were Miss High Vibrating, shouldn't you not have gotten it? Oh, no, ego, we're not playing that game. Okay. So yeah, it can be, the ego can be sneaky, and it can be very, Kalina says, ouch. Yeah. Okay. Karen says, I was always told I was selfish, so now I feel like I can't do enough for others. And what has to happen is the release of the charge around that. Okay. All right. So when you're overdoing for others, it's not doing anything for you. And really, it's actually harming them. They need to be able to do for themselves. And Ron says, I've been shrinking back from this entire class today, so I'm just sitting with it all and listening and letting it wash over me. There is truth here for me to discover today, and it is very uncomfortable. Ick. I love you, Ron. I love you, love you, love you. Thank you for listening and hanging out and being willing to receive this message, okay? Balanced giving and receiving has to happen. It is also an experience of saying, I have got to look at where the ego is causing these and what types of needs or denial are happening. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about balanced giving and receiving. Okay. Here's your reminder. So I've got one more comment though. Let's see. Oh, so it was a private message. Sending love to the private message. When it comes from a place of compassion, okay, and respect for all people's life journeys, not the ego wanting to be in control, right, respected, or seen, it's in balance. It's in balance when you give when it's asked for or it's humanely right. Okay, again, if there's a kitty in the tree, I'm going to go try to get the kitty. Okay, even though I could break my leg, right? It's humanely right. Give only when it will not enable, weaken, or put down another person. Okay? Receive when it is mutually beneficial or someone knows something you do not. Receive because you know that sometimes it's of value. We want that. Or maybe it's necessary for you to live a balanced life, not because you feel you're incapable or you need to be in lack or you're not good enough or not powerful enough to do something. Receive because you are worthy of the abundance, okay, in all areas of your life. That means health, wealth, support, kindness, and compassion, okay? And I want to point some things out. There's a book. How many of you know this book? The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. I can't imagine anybody who doesn't know this book, right? It's a beautiful book. It's this book about a tree that unconditionally loved and gave all that she had to a little boy who became an old man. And it demonstrates unconditional love and giving. It gave of its apples, its branches, and finally its entire trunk. I have a problem with this. I love the book. But there's this line in there where, and the tree gave, and the tree was happy. And then there's a line in there where it says this, And the tree was happy, but not really. And I want you to think of this. At the end, the tree had given all that it had. And at the very end, the man, an old man, came and sat on the trunk. The old man who was the boy, he was still taking. The tree gave of herself and gave of herself, and even in the end, she was happy to give of herself to be a stump. But was she truly happy? Not really. The tree was the giver and the boy was the taker. It wasn't in balance. I want you to think about relationships of all kinds, whether they are friendship, whether they are in a working situation, whether they are love, whether they are in your family. Equal giving and receiving is needed, and there is no judgment if it's not balanced, okay? But sometimes you just have to speak a truth without anger and without expectations. You can get yourself, even though they can't be in balance, you can get yourself in balance by saying, I know that you're not intending this, or I'm assuming you're not intending this, or maybe they are, so you just leave that out. But you just say, I'm not blaming, but I'm going to say that I'm not finding this balanced, and I need to set some boundaries. And it's going to be hard. And if you can't say it, then you need to get some help to heal the part of you that can't say it. Okay? Because it's not healthy for you to be in imbalanced relationships where one gives and one takes. Okay? And when you come to the table, say this. You don't blame. You don't school them in their imbalance. Okay? You seek to understand them. Don't seek to be understood. Speak the truth. Okay? You need to understand you. You don't need other people to understand you. You need them to hear your truth, which is, I don't find this to be balanced. Okay? So seek to understand. Is there, how do you feel about that? So when you come in a non-threatening way, you're not going to put people on the defense. They're going to be able to listen. Okay? And sometimes we have to let them go. Don't have a falling out. Don't have drama. And I realized I had a client that started 1 minute ago. So I'm going to get through this real quick. I want you to think about what you do for self-care. Okay? And I want you to think about this. Are you giving to yourself? And if not, why? What does good self-care look like? It means taking time for you when you need it, releasing stress, self-nurturing, taking baths, hugging yourself, listening to good music, spending time with you, eating healthy, getting good rest, meditating, being creative, getting into nature, or just doing nothing. This is unhealthy self-care. Giving yourself unhealthy foods, over drinking or eating because you say you deserve it, being alone, brooding in your head, sitting in depression, falling apart and crying, overexerting yourself when you're tired, being social when there's no time for you, doing for others when you need time for you, emotional dumping on others, baking 50 pies for people because you said you love it. That's my self-care. No, it's not. You're exhausted. Where's your healthy receiving? Because healthy receiving is critical for you. It says that you are worthy of receiving. The 1,000-petaled lotus that's described as the crown chakra is an opening to receive health, wealth, guidance, love, support, friendship, joy, and happiness. Divine guidance. Okay? If you can't receive, you're not going to be in balance. Oops, sorry. And there's an activity that I gave you that is called My Giving Tree. It is on the Facebook page. And it's where you need to list some ways you give and receive and why you think you do so. And then you analyze if there is any ego involved. And after you complete the chart, come up with statements for yourself about how you want to give and receive in the future. Set some goals. Create your own balanced giving tree. Okay, so the worksheet looks like this. I don't have time to go through it. It looks like this.
And I'm going to leave you with this quote that I say to people all the time. Actually, this is in one of my books. Our life is made up of opposites: good, bad, beautiful and ugly, right and wrong, positive and negative, masculine and feminine. And when we can appreciate the value at both ends, the sweet balance of the center is just a heartbeat away. Okay, I do have to go. I know that there are comments, but I will leave this open if you guys want to chat with each other for a bit. I have to get to a client, so I will leave it with you. Yeah. And Kalima says, crying is awesome. Crying is awesome if you do outside crying, not inside crying. If you implode in, it's not healthy. If you cry to release, it's beautiful. Okay? But emotional shutdown with it is not healthy. Brooding with it, not healthy. Okay? Just be healthy. Okay. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I'm going to leave this open because I want to be able to come back and read the comments. So if you guys want to come back and or stay in and chat with each other, you are welcome. But I have to check out. Bye.
Hello.
Hi. Anybody want to chat?
Hi.
Yeah. Wow. I had to shut my video off a couple of times. I started crying.